Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Potsie Chronicles. And boy, did it get musical with this one, didn't it?
It sure did. I knew that Potsie was a crooner and they were in a band. I didn't realize it happened this soon. We're in episode 10. So for those of you keeping track, 255 episodes. We're on episode 10. We are, I was going to say we're 125th through, but there's that 5. Would it be 125th.5? Wait, that could be a fraction. Wait. I don't know. We've seen 10 episodes. But yes, it got very musical. We're going to talk all about it. But before we jump into it, we always like to play this game. My son has seen the show. We just watched it. But before we watch it, I show him the title and I give him a couple minutes to predict after seeing the title, what is it about? Now, this episode was called Give the Band a Hand. When you saw Give the Band a Hand, what did you think this episode was going to be about?
Now, here's what I thought, Rex. I thought that they were just going to create a band or something, and get very successful and whatnot, make some money, become like a new Metallica or whatever your favorite band is.
Yes.
And, just go on tours and everything, just be very successful.
I didn't think, I know I don't play this game, but I thought that it just meant to like applaud for the band. That's kind of what it sounds like, but it actually wasn't. And we're going to get right into that. So let's just go ahead and jump in. We do the opening credits, still the same cast members. Fonzie and Ralph Mouth, Henry Winkler and Don Most, Joni, Aaron Moran are at the end, but there are some changes. What they do is put some new scenes. So cut, as we like to call them, has been cut effectively. Richie, Potsie, and Cut combing their hair is no longer there, but someone is combing their hair. And I believe I even said that in an earlier episode about how Fonzie looks in the mirror and like he goes to comb his hair and then like he just stops because it's so perfect and he does that kind of arms outstretched. You know what I mean? That was in there now. That was a new one. The waitress that quit, that knocked the head off from an early episode was in there.
Yeah, something I noticed with all these is that there were kind of a bunch of recalls from previous episodes that we had watched.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like after they shot I'm guessing I don't know if they shot it in order, but let's just say they did. Like they shot the 9 episodes. The first kind of batch of scenes were like, oh, let's just do some 50 stuff. Like, let's put Cut, Richie, and Potsie in a mirror combing their hair. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, but now we have footage we can draw from. Like the footage of the waitress that quits, the head falling off. Like they didn't have that probably when they first made these credits.
I'm curious if we're ever going to see that scene or if that was just for the intro of like Cut combing his hair or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm thinking that was just for the opening credits because they had to have opening credits probably before they really made all these episodes. And then once they made the initial 9, it's like, oh, let's just pull like the waitress that quit knocking the head off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that really seemed to be the only one I think from an episode, right? Because Fonzie doing the whole thing, looking at his hair, I don't remember it. I'm not saying it wasn't. We've seen 10 episodes, but
there was the one where the guy spills ketchup on the lady, remember?
That's another one too. Yeah, that's something from an early episode. That was like, was that the guy that put the French fry in his mouth? Or was it the next one? Wasn't there like 2 couples and one of them, the ketchup went all over the lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was from that. Yeah, so there were 2 scenes. Okay. So what I'm guessing is the producers are like, hey, we've shot 9 episodes. For episode 10, let's just put in a couple like clips.
Yeah.
And we'll cut out and we'll cut out something else. I don't know. But they still had like the guy that may or may not be Ralph Mouth. That I think was on the whole series. I guess if we make it that far, we'll actually see. And they also had the waitress that quits where she spilled on the cops as Richie and Potsie waved to her, which she got 2 parts in the opening. Do you know what I mean? I think she had more than the Fonz. The Fonz just was not combing his hair. And the waitress that quit got the head falling off and spilling stuff on the cops. She has one more scene than the Fonz in the opening credits, if I'm doing my math correctly.
What a role.
Yeah. They also had a scene from, wasn't it the lemon where Howard is in Richie and Potsie's and the seat falls down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's like 3 clips from earlier episodes. But then there was another scene, like the first one in the opening credits of scenes. Richie, Potsie, other people, there's like 7 people in a car, convertible, and they stop in the middle of the road. And I noticed this. It looked like they're driving in the middle of the road too. Didn't you notice that? They weren't like on the right side where cars usually drive, and they weren't on the left side where they drive in other countries. They were like in the middle.
Are you talking about where they all switch seats?
Yeah, yes. And then they all jump out and they're all switching, and there's a car behind them honking, even though, like, theoretically, there's no one else there. They could probably pass, but again, they are in the middle of the road, so I don't know. There's a lot of going on there.
They probably should have just pulled over or something, and did that. Because I don't really see a reason to just, get everybody out and just swap seats.
What was that, like a gag in the 50s? I don't know much about the 50s, as I've mentioned before. Like, was that like a big gag where it's like, hey, we're going to hold up the person behind us that's probably already late for work? You know what I mean? And it'll be a fun gag as we all just get out and switch places.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering, because why would they even do that? Because that person had no way of getting around. And like you said, they could have just like pulled over to the side. So I don't know. But the car horn honked, I feel like at least 5 times in that 3-second montage of them getting out and going, kind of switching. And they were kind of giggling or laughing, if you will, as they were doing this. So I guess they were probably doing something. I hope it wasn't a lady in labor. Do you know what I mean? And like maybe the doctor that comes over with the big bag for house calls wasn't available, so they had to go to the hospital. I hope it wasn't anything urgent.
Yeah.
So anyways, yep. That was the opening credits, and we open up at Arnold's, and spoiler alert, we get our first taste of Arnold, which we will get to. So here's one thing I want to point out. I've talked about drug references in the first 9 episodes of Happy Days. Did you notice 2 things? One, there was a pile of white substance all over the table that was supposed to be salt. I'm just going to say it looked a little more floury than salt to me. I didn't have my glasses on. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the Blu-ray DVD player, doing such a fine job. But yeah, lots of white powder all over. And if that weren't enough, Richie has a straw with this white powder as he's theoretically blowing the white powder all over the table. So I'm just going to say, I feel like these producers, writers, what have you, were trying to get something over if they even had censors in the 70s,
Yeah.
So bunch of salt on the table.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, are they trying to like reference drugs? Like, are they trying to do drugs?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Like, without saying it, I really think that was a drug reference. I really feel like this might be the filthiest show ever.
When I saw that straw get near the quote unquote salt,
yeah,
I was like, what does this have to do with giving the band a hand?
Yeah. And I think too, well, I guess if you use the spoon, that would be bad too, now that I think about it. But like,
yeah,
if you really want, maybe maybe a knife. I don't even know what you could spread salt around really that wouldn't be drug related.
His hands.
Yeah, his hands. I mean, it's salt. Salt doesn't really stick as much. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't even know. But let's just say something was definitely going on with this, because the first shot you see is a bunch of white powder on a table. It's like Scarface, you know what I mean? And a straw. So they're doing this. He and Potsie are, first, besides making a mess, they're talking about that they need money.
I'm sure that they knew what they were doing with their angel dust.
Oh, I forgot about that. Was that? That was last week even, right? Angel dust?
I think since that seemed like it was a drug reference, angel dust was probably a drug reference as well.
Yeah, because I think we made reference to that last week about the angel dust, and we thought, well, it was maybe a coincidence, but this does not seem like a coincidence. I'm going to say, if you watch those Happy Days episodes back to back, I'd say that's like 2 drug references in 7 minutes, even though it was a different week. Do you know what I mean? But like, if you're doing a Happy Days marathon, that was like at the end of the show, and this was at the beginning. I'd say within 7 minutes of back-to-back Happy Days, 2 drug references. So, yeah. So, Potsie and Richie are talking about how they don't have any money, how if they pull their money together, they have like $1.11, which might not be so bad in the 50s, you know?
Yeah.
$1.11 might be like $10 today. I have no idea. But let's even say it's like $5. Well, if it was like $5 today, that wouldn't be good. You know, sadly, with the economy. But anyways, Ralph Mouth is walking around like apparently he works there. He's wearing like a white t-shirt and a white cap as he's cleaning, saying he's busier than a one-armed paper hanger.
I wonder if the waitress who quit again. So Arnold was just, we gotta get someone.
Yeah.
And Ralph Mouth probably saw like a poster saying hiring waiters / waitresses.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I gotta get a job, so let me do this. Maybe that's why we see him in that position.
Yeah, maybe he read the bulletin board. You know what I mean? Like the poster was on the bulletin board. So Ralph Mouth is walking around cleaning everything up. Then he chastises Richie and Potsie for making that mess because he'd have to clean it up. And they're like, you used to make these messes, Ralph Mouth. He's like, yeah, but I didn't have to clean it up. That's like karma, huh?
Yeah.
Here's what I'm wondering. If Richie and Potsie don't have any money, why don't they ask Ralph Mouth if they can put in a good word to Arnold? You know? Maybe they could get a job there. Ralph Mouth is working. Maybe they could get a job. So they're discussing how to get money, and then Richie and Potsie talk about having a band, but their piano player quit. And then they're like, wait, Ralph Mouth plays the piano. So they asked Ralph Mouth if he wanted to play the piano. Didn't he say something like he's working his way up and he wants to get in the baskets of chicken? Yeah, I think he did. So Ralph Mouth has desires to move up the Arnold's food chain. No pun intended. And as they leave, Ralph Mouth puts down like one of those kind of tray things where you put the trays of the dirty dishes down. And did Potsie and Richie move it on purpose?
I think so.
So they were really trying to get him fired. So yeah, because I kind of missed that. I was watching, but we forgot to take notes again. And yeah, I feel like they moved it. So like he puts the dishes where the thing was and they all break. So you hear all these dishes break. Then you hear Arnold go, Ralph. So you hear Arnold's voice. We don't see Arnold, but you hear Arnold yell at Ralph. And then doesn't Ralph Mouth say something like, when am I going to be your piano player? Or something to that effect. Yeah. So his dream of doing the chicken basket seems to have died because Richie and Potsie sabotaged him. Listen, all y'all, this is sabotage. And yeah.
I really am curious to like what Arnold looks like.
Well, we do find out. I think it's Arnold. And I'm going to say that didn't sound like the Arnold I remember. But we'll find out all about it. That is one thing I remember. I remember Arnold. But let's move on. So we cut to the next scene where the band is playing. Fonzie is watching. Fonzie sure likes to watch things, doesn't he? He's kind of an observer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he watched them play basketball. He's watching the band practice. So
I wonder if he's like planning something or whatnot.
You think he's got some kind of plot against everybody?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's got some kind of plan. I feel like maybe that'll all be revealed like in the Happy Days finale if, we get that far.
Yeah. Like a diabolical plan or like a fun plan, or what kind of plan do you think that he's doing?
I don't know. It might be diabolical just to make it like, interesting.
Yeah.
But I feel for Happy Days it would also be a fun one, so I don't know.
I would say like Happy Days, it would be fun, but if it's really Fonzie, who just seems to be taken down all the time by these guys, you know what I mean? Like it would be diabolical because he's got to be getting kind of tired of the shenanigans of Richie and Potsie after everything that's happened,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we'll see. So Fonzie's there listening. You've got Ralph playing the piano. You've got Potsie and Richie. I think Potsie's playing the bass and Richie is playing the guitar. And then you have a drummer, and I don't know, was that Bag? It looked like Bag, but it might have been a different actor. What do you think?
It looked like Bag.
I feel like Bag would not come back to play the drums as that character, maybe the actor, and they're hoping people forgot him. Do you know what I mean? But like, I'll tell you this, I didn't hear them ever call this character a name on the drums. You know what I mean? So like, that's why it's even more puzzling. It's like, was it Bag? Because they never referred to the drummer as a name.
Did we hear quote unquote Bag speak?
Yes, he did talk a couple times, but I don't remember what Bag sounded like from the other episode. So it could have been Bag. It could have been the actor that played Bag. Maybe they're trying to pull a fast one on us, like cut. Like, hey, we've got this Bag actor on contract. We really don't want to do another episode with Bag. Let's make him the drummer. So they're there and they're playing All Shook Up. And I don't know what they're paying Elvis Presley for all of his songs. And I'm still wondering, are they paying Elvis Presley? Are they paying royalties? Are they paying nothing? And also, if they're selling DVDs, is that part of the deal? I mean, I know they had no DVDs. I don't even think they had VHS back when this came out. Like, they probably just thought they were going to film this episode and then never show it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, back then, they probably had no idea of, like, DVD sets. But anyways, they're playing All Shook Up, and then Fonzie hears something wrong, and he's like, hey, one at a time. He makes them play like the drums one at a time. And he gives the thumbs up. They all sound good to Fonzie's ears separately. But then when they get together, they sound terrible for some reason.
Yeah.
So they finished their band practice, and I believe all they played was All Shook Up. Then we cut to the Cunningham house. Marion is doing something at the sink, and there is a window right by the sink, as probably most places have. And we see a masked individual come up in kind of a Chewbacca / maybe Wolfman mask. I guess that would be the Wolfman. Chewbacca, I think, was not even around in 1974. So, and plus, if they were being, with the 50s. So let's just say it's a Wolfman mask. Potsie comes up in a Wolfman mask, gets no reaction from Aaron. She goes, oh, hey, Potsie.
I was thinking it was a Chewbacca mask. I didn't know when, like, Star Wars came out and whatnot.
Yeah. I believe.
Was it in the 90s or 80s?
Well, actually, I think it was like 1970, like the mid to late 70s. Okay. It wouldn't have been out at this time. I know it wasn't out in 1974, which is when I think this episode aired. So I also think that they couldn't have done it even if they had it out, because then it was although they could have just had a Chewbacca mask and said it was a Wolfman if anybody asked. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine Star Wars X Happy Days?
Yeah, that would be something. Star Wars and Happy Days. I'm trying to think what would happen in Star. Would Richie Cunningham be Luke Skywalker? Fonzie would definitely have to be Han Solo, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Or maybe they wouldn't even have to be characters. Maybe they would just have like their own universe, but they would be in the Star Wars universe. Does that make sense?
Who'd be Yoda?
Yeah, Howard, right?
Howard?
Chuck? I don't know. Who do you think would be Yoda?
Maybe Chuck. I could see that.
Yeah, probably Chuck.
Howard would probably be Darth Vader, I feel.
Really?
Yeah.
That much about Howard to be Darth Vader?
Yeah.
What about Moose?
Oof. Maybe one of the stormtroopers?
Like, instead of lightsabers, what would they use to fight? Because I don't think they'd have lightsabers, would they?
Would it have to be a weapon or just like an item they'd use?
I guess it could be an item.
Maybe like DVDs or whatever, like disc to, or I don't know.
Well, it couldn't be discs because they didn't have them in the 50s or 1974. Like a jukebox, although that would be expensive and heavy.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Maybe like a microphone?
Oh, wait a minute. If you want to say discs, like those 45 records that they would play in the jukeboxes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of lightsabers, they would have those. Yeah.
That'd probably work.
Yeah. So then Potsie comes in. He still keeps his mask on as he comes in. I don't know. Was he still trying to scare everybody or something?
I don't know, because, like, no one got scared.
Yeah. He tells Richie that he got them a gig and everybody was going to be paid like $11.50 or $11.75. Something. It wasn't quite $12. Remember?
Yeah, and then Howard says, I'll pay you $12 not to play.
Yeah, so Howard offers more money. Yeah, that's how I remember it wasn't $12 because he offers more for them not to play. The odd thing about that is, like, one, It seems like they just got together. Oh, and it's at a frat house, by the way, that's offering that. And then the second thing is like 11, let's just say it's 1150. So you times that times 4, that is what, $45? 40 I don't 45 and some change, right? That's a lot of money for a band to be paid in the 50s.
Yeah.
Cuz if we're doing the whole thing, I'm thinking that had to have been like over $100 in 1974 money. So, yeah, I don't know how he swung that, because that's a lot of money for the 50s and a lot of money for an unproven band. Like, they could have got, I don't know, like, I wonder how much Elvis would have cost to play at a frat party in the 50s.
I don't know. It'd probably be expensive, I'm sure.
You think it'd be like $100?
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, but then if they're paying them $45, what about Pat Boone? I know Pat Boone was popular back then because Richie's girlfriend liked the new Pat Boone song. So how much would Pat Boone be making at a frat party in whatever year this was? What do you think? Just give me a ballpark figure.
Less than Elvis, because I don't know who that is.
Okay, so if Elvis, let's say we said was 100, Pat Boone, let's just say Pat Boone was 75, right?
Yeah.
They're making $30 less than Pat Boone. That's kind of crazy, you know?
Is that good or bad? I can't.
Good for them.
I can't do the math.
Yeah, it would be. I think it'd be bad for Pat Boone. I'd be going, if I was Pat Boone, I'd be going to my management and saying, I'm only making $30 more than a teenage high school band at a frat party. Do you think that Elvis and Pat Boone, if they would have gone to the frat party, they'd have like those, do you know what riders are, like concert riders?
No.
Okay. Riders are what bands request for their concert. So there was like a big thing back in like the, I don't know, it would probably have to be the late 70s or early 80s. Like Van Halen put in their rider that they would get M&Ms, but they'd have to take out all the brown M&Ms. You know what I mean? But like nowadays, it's like, you know, we need like 10 packs of Coca-Cola, 10 packs of Coca-Cola, of course, not the other thing. You know, like 5, I don't even know.
Not the angel dust.
Yeah. 5 glasses of orange juice, probably not orange juice. I don't know. But you know, it would be the stuff that they not need, but the stuff that they want for them to do the show. So they'd have to go like 10 packs of Krispy Kreme donuts. These are like their demands. Like, you need to get us these things before we perform in our dressing room. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what Pat Boone would have had in his rider. I wonder, it doesn't sound like Richie's band had a rider. Did they have a name?
I don't even think they had a name.
Yeah.
I think they just like were all together and we were like, oh, we're a band now.
Yeah. So they literally just got back together and, you know, they're making $30 less than Pat Boone, who is on a jukebox.
I wonder if Fonzie was trying to manage that band or something.
Oh, like he was the manager? Yeah. I feel like Fonzie could have got him Pat Boone money if he was.
Because like
You
he's
know?
so cool and everything.
Yeah. He could have swayed them into getting probably even Elvis money.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a major error that they didn't get Fonzie. It sounded like Potsie did the negotiations, which he didn't do too bad, getting him almost Pat Boone money. But, you know, Fonzie would have got him over that hump. So, yeah, so he's telling him that. Then Potsie, I guess, leaves, and he seemed kind of dejected that no one reacted to his Chewbacca/Wolfman mask, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he leaves.
Marion comes down to talk to Howard, and then Howard sees Marion, and he just gets terrified.
Yeah, I think he was making a joke, which again, negative humor. Like, Potsie's scary mask wasn't scary, but Marion's real face was scary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're not saying that. I'm just saying this is what they kind of, but then he like kind of, yeah, he implied that, yes. And then he kind of like laughed it off and she was like, oh, Howard, you know? So like, yeah. Okay. So we cut to the frat party. They're playing All Shook Up, which is what we did here in the actual band practice. So we see this frat party. The first thing I see in this frat party is all of these college-age people look like they're in their late 30s. And I don't know if it's just like in the 50s. Maybe you were in your late 30s when you went to college. I would think you'd have to be like after 18, you know? But maybe they had like 12 years of like something else they had to do in the 50s. So, well, if it was late 30s, that'd be like 20 years. Maybe we should really research this. Maybe they had to do, okay, so they graduate from high school at 18, right? Go with me here. They do 20 years of something else, then they're able to go to college. You think?
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I think so. So they're in this frat house. No one's really dancing. We do see one couple dancing, but we also see like this giant bulldog that has like a fraternity blanket over him, draped over him.
I think his name was Roscoe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they didn't say it quite yet, but yes, we do ultimately find his name, but he's sitting on the Barca lounger, if you will, and they're finishing up All Shook Up. And then they go to like two of the elderly frat guys, and they're like, no one's dancing, even though we do see one couple dancing. I feel like they should have not had that couple dance if they're saying no one's dancing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because two people are dancing. He's correct in the fact that, a lot of people aren't dancing. And then the other guy says, well, they've been playing the same song all night. So apparently the only song Richie's unnamed band knows is All Shook Up.
They really should have had the Fonz manage.
Yeah, the Fonz could have taught him another song at least,
Yeah.
Like a Pat Boone song. Potsie decides he's going to shake things up. I don't know if he even said that, if that was a pun for All Shook Up. And he's going to sing. So here's one thing I do remember. Potsie does croon, which I don't know if that's going to make you tap out at the end of this episode. But Potsie does croon in some of these. I remember that Potsie does sing. So Potsie puts his bass down. Somehow the music sounds exactly the same, even though it's one less instrument. And Potsie sings All Shook Up. And then he goes up to the dog, whose name is Roscoe. I don't think we find that out yet. But he goes, let's just call him Roscoe since we know that his name is Roscoe. He goes up to Roscoe to sing to Roscoe. And as he sings to Roscoe, Roscoe leaves the Barca lounger and walks away from Potsie in the midst of Potsie serenading him.
The thing is, I don't even know how they could have controlled the dog back then, considering I don't think they had CGI back then, did they?
No, definitely not. So they must have had an animal trainer. And I'm wondering too if they had the cruelty. Nowadays, it's they always have to put no animals have been harmed. Even if they have 30 insects, they have to say no animals have been harmed. They're all treated humanely. You know what I mean? They have trainers and everything. I'm hoping that in the 70s, they didn't have a trainer that was all mean to Roscoe. You know what I mean? They're hey, Roscoe, just screaming at Roscoe, Roscoe, you missed your cue. Potsie's going to need to croon again. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, I would have hated that.
Yeah, I really hope that we got to Google when they did the cruelty to animals in films, because poor Roscoe could have had a vicious trainer. We're not saying anything bad about the trainer. We're just saying, I don't know what the laws are. Apparently, if they have something that looks like cocaine in the opening scene, all bets are off with animals,
Which one do you think would be worse, all right? Being yelled at by the trainer?
Yeah.
Or hearing Potsie croon again?
Well, I'm going to say being yelled at by the trainer, because if I say the other, I'm afraid you're going to tap out. So I'll say being yelled at by the trainer. So yeah. So hopefully they didn't yell at Roscoe. I would say poor Roscoe being yelled at would be worse. What do you say?
Justice for Roscoe.
Yes.
Honestly, yelling,
Yeah.
you can make it sound however you'd like.
Yeah.
While with the crooning, that just sucks. So I'm going to have to go with the crooning.
Okay. Well, it's a split decision here. So Roscoe goes away. The frat is none too happy that they're playing the same song over and over. The frat just decides they put a record on. And I think, doesn't the band say, well, we're going to take a break, and then they just play the record, then everybody comes out and starts dancing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Richie and Potsie are at the punch bowl. Potsie sees a blonde lady, and he's like, hey, that lady's giving me the eye. And Richie's like, hey, we're high school kids. And Potsie's like, watch me work my magic. And he goes, hey, I noticed you're staring at me. And then she's like, yeah, you have a chive stuck in your teeth.
And then you could tell that, Potsie was very sad after that.
Yeah. Potsie was yet again shot down, as he was in the Demons episode, and probably in others that I can't remember. So,
and also being left for dead.
Yeah, yeah, which they never really talked about his feelings. You know what would be good in an alternative Happy Days episode is if Potsie went to the therapist to talk about how he felt for being left for dead at a stag party. You know what I mean?
You think it was the therapist's idea to like put that mask on?
You know what? That is great. Yeah, like the therapist is like, Potsie, you're like a wolf, Potsie. Put the wolf mask on. Be a wolf, Potsie. You know what I mean? And then Potsie's like, I am a wolf. So then he puts on the wolf to get his wolf out somehow. I don't even know. Wait, that would be a good movie too. The therapist turns Potsie into a wolf. I think that was a movie, actually. Maybe
Just
not a therapist, but there's a Jack Nicholson movie where he turned into a wolf. And Michelle Pfeiffer was in it. I wonder if she was a therapist. I need to Google that afterward. They could remake it. Jack Nicholson, Potsie, you know.
I feel like the therapist would be saying that he'd have to be a wolf so he could like assert his dominance, considering being left for dead, always getting rejected, having a terrible singing voice.
Thank you for actually coming up with a reason for it. That's what I was trying to search for. Yes, the therapist is like, Potsie, assert your dominance. Be a wolf. Put the wolf mask on. I wonder if we'll see that wolf mask again. Or do you think he's like the next week, he's like, geez, I put the wolf mask on and I wasn't a wolf. And the therapist is like, Potsie. I don't know.
That would be just great. Honestly,
Yeah.
Fonzie and the orangutan or whatever
Yeah.
the hell its name is
Yeah.
might have competition.
Yeah. You know, there was a show like, gosh, I don't know. I think at least 15 years ago that was about a therapist. It was on HBO. And this therapist would see these different clients. I think they had 3 clients that kind of came in and out. And it was just like their therapy session. So, I mean, again, the precedent has been set. We could have a therapist and Potsie show. You know what I mean?
It'd be like an off-brand Rick and Morty. Like you could see
Yeah.
Potsie being like, "Oh, geez."
Wait, would they be in adventures together, the therapist and Potsie? Or would it just be them talking? Or would they talk? Wait a minute. What if it was like an adventure therapist? You know what I mean? Where that was his whole key of, I'm going to listen to you, but we're also going to go on futuristic adventures like Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how he gets the wolf mask. He's like, assert your dominance.
We forgot to mention, with Potsie singing, we also have 2 of the redheads singing. We got Richie Cunningham and we got Ralph Mouth.
Yeah, they sing the chorus. Potsie sings all the verses and they just kind of do the backup in the back, of course. And here's the thing I noticed too, is like when Ralph Mouth wasn't singing, he blows a giant bubble. Like, is he singing with gum in his mouth?
I don't know. He might have been.
Yeah. I wonder if that's possible. You think that like, it's like a good crooner, like Pavarotti. You think he's ever had, do you know who Pavarotti is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's another one I think you're going to have to Google. But I wonder if Pavarotti ever had some bubble gum in his mouth as he's singing. So then we cut to the band at the end of the night. Richie and Potsie say that they're going to get the money. They'll give it to the band later. And apparently they have to sweep up. So then we cut to them sweeping up. And Richie makes a sarcastic comment like, well, you should have told me to do the windows too. And Potsie's like, oh, they wanted us to do the windows, but I took less money just for us to sweep up. So they were there to be a band and to sweep up.
They might have gotten more attention cleaning, honestly.
Yeah, I think that they really were being paid to clean more so than their band. You know what I mean? Like, I think if they were putting this in the frat book, they probably would have put for an expense report, like, we paid these guys to clean rather than we paid these guys to play all shook up 30 times.
Yeah, it might have been embarrassing to say that, they paid them to sing and have that band there.
And as they're doing this, 3 of the guys are playing poker and they go to get the money. And the guy's like, how much do I owe you? And Richie's like, oh, $45. And then the guy's like, oh, I'm $5 short. You want to play a hand to make that back?
Did you forget about poor Roscoe?
Oh, wasn't Roscoe playing cards as well?
Yeah. He was just sitting there, just breathing like...
Yeah. He was sitting at the card table. And I think that's when we find out his name is Roscoe, right?
Yeah, because
they're like, hey, Roscoe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So they're like, I'm $5 short, but we can play a hand if you want to. And then Richie and Potsie, I think, discuss it, don't they?
Yeah,
if they should do it.
Because, Richie's like, no, I don't want to do that. And Potsie's like, oh, come on, Richie.
Yeah. And then we somehow find out that they have a marked deck that they're going to use to take all of Richie and Potsie's money so that they don't have to play. And doesn't one of the guys say, hey, that's a crime? And then the guy's like, no, it's a crime if I have to pay them for their singing. So they come up with this scheme. They're going to rip off Richie and Potsie and not have to pay them, not only to sweep up, but to play. So we cut to the Cunningham house. I have no idea what time it is. Marion and Howard are like still up, right?
Yeah.
In the kitchen table. So they're still up. Richie comes in and they're like, hey, Richie, how was the, big gig? And he's like, oh, well, I had the money, but then I lost it all in poker, right?
Yeah.
And then he describes to Howard how he lost his money. And Howard's like, you got the Hoboken shuffle or something, right? Hoboken something, right?
Yeah.
Hoboken hustle. Yeah. You got the Hoboken hustle. And he's like, the Hoboken hustle. And he's like, they used to call me Chips Cunningham.
And Marion's like, they never called you that.
Yeah. And then Howard gets a deck of cards. And here's the crazy thing is he's doing all these card tricks, but you just see his arms. So like somebody, I would assume, had to be like a stand-in for the real Howard Cunningham actor, They had to like put this other guy that knows how to do these card tricks in a red pair of pajamas. Because you just see like these arms with the red pajamas Howard's making, doing all like these cards, shuffling real fast. So I wonder if at the end it said like Howard card stand-in, like Chips Cunningham stand-in.
I wonder how much that guy got paid to do that.
Yeah, because it's like one of those things you see like Howard, he pulls the deck of cards out, then they cut away where you just see his arms, and he's like doing all the fast Vegas-y shuffles with the cards. Yeah, I wonder if he got like scale. I wonder if he's in SAG, like the Actors Union, for doing the Howard, or if he went on to better things. What if it was like some huge actor that got their start being Chips Cunningham's stand-in,
Yes.
It could be like Ted Danson or something. I wonder if it was Ted Danson. It could be anybody,
Could have been me.
Yeah, could have. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah. So they do that, and then Howard's like, I'm going to go back and get your money. So they cut back, and this time Roscoe is still at the table, and Roscoe actually has like cards somehow in front of him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's like really playing somehow.
They hear a knock at the door, and he says, hi. They close the door, and he's like, Richie's at the door with an old man. Then they're like, just open it and just tell him to go away. He opens it again, and then they get into like a whole conversation, and he's like, can I come in? And
they let him in. I think they covered up their poker table with like a picnic tablecloth, right?
Yeah, and then they're all reading.
Yeah. And then that's when they get into discussion of, hey, Richie didn't come back with his money. It's like, well, he lost it in cards. He's like, oh, well, if he lost it fair and square, that's okay. And then he's like, oh, I play bridge with my church. Like he's acting like this rube that knows nothing about cards. So they're like, oh, we're going to get his money. So then they pull it off and they decide that they're going to play cards, right? And then that's when they make Roscoe leave again.
Yeah.
And the other thing is one of those guys is named Animal, and he's a football player, and he's telling everybody he's a football player. Do you know me? And like nobody knows him. So they make a place for Howard, and they get their mark deck. So I guess the whole scheme, as they describe it, is they're going to make Howard win, which is what they must have done to Richie too, is they let them win the first few times. Then when they go all in with all the money, that's when they get out like they cheat, right?
Yeah.
So they do that with Howard, but Chips Cunningham knows what he's doing. He loses all the games he's supposed to win. And they're like, this guy's so terrible. He was supposed to win. What's going on? And then Richie's like, Dad, what are you doing? You're losing everything. And then Howard's like, just be patient, Richie. So then they do the whole thing about they get the mark deck, and then Howard's like, wait a minute, you want to triple everything? And of course, they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to triple this guy's money. And then Howard gets out his own deck, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, let me deal. And they're like, no, we can't do that. Then he's like, oh, well, maybe you want me to go tell the dean what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah.
He threatens them. He gets it out. They go back to perhaps Ted Danson, perhaps not, arms, doing all the card tricks. So the guy had to not only wear the red pajamas, he had to wear Howard's trench coat, the arm actor, let's just call him that, as he's doing all the tricks.
The struggles that he's had to go through.
Howard ends up winning the money back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they cut back to the Cunningham kitchen, which apparently it's morning. God knows how long they were out. How long was that frat party and how long was this poker game?
Too long.
Yeah, because Joni's eating breakfast wearing her Junior Chipmunk outfit again. And here's the other thing. At the Cunningham household, for like the breakfast nook, if you will, the breakfast table, there's only 3 chairs. Can Marion eat with them?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know.
The only reason I say Marion is because she got up for Howard. So it was the 3 of them sitting and eating. They don't have anything for Chuck. But like, what's going on? Why are there only 3 when there's at least 4 there, you know?
Maybe they weren't able to afford another one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe after the Pink Palace debacle.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Couldn't they have just taken another chair from the dining room?
Well, yeah. Chuck's chair isn't always there. You know what I mean? So why did they just take Chuck's chair?
Yeah, normally he's just at a away game or something.
Yeah, so if you think about it, they're really 2 chairs short. Because if they only have 3 and Chuck's there sometimes, they're missing Marion and Chuck's chair. But anyways, so Joni's eating breakfast. It's like Howard's been up all night winning money. Do you think it was illegal to have that poker back in Milwaukee in the 1950s like it was for the drag racing?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so lots of legalities in this show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
not family friendly, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you think about it, I'd rather watch poker than them going to the Pink Palace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Eddie's
Pink Palace, yes. Or any, actually. But yeah. So they're there. Howard apparently needs to go to the father-daughter chipmunk day that's going on that day when Howard's been up all night illegally gambling and winning his son's money back. But doesn't he say he's not going to give Richie and Potsie the money? He's going to give it to the other band members, but Richie and Potsie need to work at the hardware store.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Comes at a price, Richie and Potsie. So, yeah, then Richie offers to take Joni to the daddy-daughter Junior Chipmunk, but then she says something like, Richie's always hitting on the senior chipmunks, right? And then Richie says something about their appearance, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't he say something like they all have overbites?
I feel like he says that they're tomboys.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that they're all tomboys. So it's like, man, Richie. So Howard, I guess, ends up... they don't show it, sadly. That would have been nice to... maybe that could be an alternative Happy Days episode where Howard takes Joni with 0 minutes of sleep to the Junior Chipmunk dance.
I'm just going to say it. I know it's not the end yet.
Yeah.
But just out of respect for Howard, I don't think I'm going to choose horrible Howard because of what he had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably like the most helpful he's been. He's been pretty helpful, but I mean, going and winning a poker hand to pay off his son's friends, that's like really helpful, you know? Yeah. So then we cut to Joni and Marion come out of the kitchen. Joni's made like her Junior Chipmunk meal for dinner that ends up being bark soup, which is exactly what you would think it would be. It's actually made out of bark. Everybody doesn't like it but Chuck, who asks for more and compliments everybody.
I wonder if that's like his cheat meal or something.
Yeah, you think he's got to eat like... well, they probably didn't have protein. I mean, they had some kind of protein shakes, probably the 50s. You know what I mean? But like, maybe they didn't have protein. Do you think they had protein in the 50s?
I don't even know.
Yeah. He's probably... let's just say he's eating apples. I'm sure they had apples in the 50s. Like, he's just eating apples. Then he's like, God, this bark soup. This is my cheat meal. So then they decide they'll all go get cheeseburgers. Probably at Arnold's. Probably poor Ralph Malph. They're probably going to stiff Ralph Malph on his tip. Although I guess Ralph Malph's fired, right?
Yeah.
Those dishes. The waitress that quits might be their server. I don't know. So they do that. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the episode, right?
I believe so.
Yes. So Give the Band a Hand actually was a reference, I guess, to the card game and not like applauding the band. Because, yeah, no one applauded that band, I'll tell you that.
I'm surprised no one really booed that band.
Yeah. I'm surprised no one left that frat party. I don't know what else you do in your late 30s, though, if you're a college student. But yeah, so that's the episode. Episode 10 of season 1, Give the Band a Hand. We made it at least into the double digits. We're about to see if we keep making it. Do you want to watch another episode?
Yes.
All right. So we will be back next time. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share, spread the word. If you love the show, if you didn't like it, please keep it to yourself. Thank you once again for listening.
What's Happy Days?